Sachas Kiddushin Daf Nun Tes is the first full daf in the third parak of the Masechta. The Gemara begins by analyzing a Lashon Kasha on our most recent Mishnah. So our most recent Mishnah began by discussing somebody who sent someone to be a Kiddushin Daf for him, and it says someone who says to his friend, meaning he didn't make him into an official shliach, he just sent him to go do Kiddushin for him, and what ended up happening is that the shliach, or the chaveroi, that is, was mekadesh the woman for himself. So the Gemara notes that contrasts with the Mishnah Daf Nun, where it says where he makes the person into an actual shliach. There it's talking about where he sent to be mekadesh and isha in one place, he was mekadesh somewhere else, and the Mishnah says that she is not mikudesh, as he meant specifically in that spot. The Gemara wants to know why here does it say chaveroi, and there it says shluchai. So the Gemara says that there's a chiddush in each one. In either way, the term shluchai means that he specifically had in mind to make him a shliach. He was appointing him to shliach, and he assumed that he was going to do what he sends him to do, no matter where, or what, or how. In the case of chaveroi, he's only really kind of asking him to do it. He doesn't fully expect him to do it, and therefore his smichas hadas, his reliance on him, and his appointing him to do the mission is not full. Now, therefore, in our Mishnah, where he sends him, and he does not do the mission, instead he decides to be mekadesh the woman for himself, our Mishnah had implied that although the Kiddushin is chal to the messenger, to the chaveroi, it's a trickery, it's the wrong thing to do. So the Gemara points out, and that's why we had to say chaveroi. If it were to be shluchai, it would be obvious that it would be the wrong thing to do, because the person who sent him is relying on him doing the actual job that he sent him for, and instead he does something else. You may think chaveroi, though, he didn't really make him a shliach, so maybe the sender doesn't have full smichas das that he's going to do it, so it's not a real trickery. And therefore the Mishnah goes ahead and says, no, even in that case, it's a trickery. It's not the right thing to do. Now, in the case where he sends him to do a shlichus in one place, and instead he does it somewhere else, there the halacha is that she's not mekudesh, so you might think that's only where it was a chaveroi. But only say chavar, you would think that's only where it is chaveroi, where he didn't really make a mashech, didn't really expect him to do it, and therefore he thought he's only going to do it if he happens to be on his way to that spot, if he happens to be there. But he didn't have smichas das that he was going to go out of his way to go it, or if he couldn't find the issue there, that he would go somewhere else. And therefore his shlichus was only in that spot. That's what you may think had it said chaveroi. Therefore you need to tell me shluchah, even if he actually made him a shliach, he only meant it in that spot and not somewhere else. Now, the Gemara brings three incidents of Talmidei Chachamim who did something similar to this, where they were sent to do a mission for someone else, instead they did it for themselves. The first one is Ravin Chasida, Ravin the Tzaddik, who went to be Mekadesh and Isha for his own son, and instead he was Mekadesh for himself. So the Gemara asks, but the Brisa said that it's a minig ramois, it's trickery to do something like that, so how could Ravin Chasida do that? So the Gemara answers, the case there was that the family was not willing to give the girl over to his son. They refused that Kiddushin. So the only thing that was left to do was for him to marry her himself. So the Gemara asks, well, why didn't he at least inform his son that they were not allowing it, and then he wouldn't look like a Ramai, he wouldn't look like a trickster. So the Gemara says he was afraid that someone else would be Mekadesh in the meantime. He would lose the opportunity, that's why he didn't have time to send the message home first. Next example the Gemara brings is Brisa, that says that Rabba Bar Chana gave money to Rav to buy a field for him, and Rav went and he bought it for himself. So Gemara asks again that's minig ramois, so that's trickery. So the Gemara says the valley in which the field was located was also home to a number of very strong, tough guys, and they would not have respected Rabbi Bar Chana. He would not have been able to stand up to them. They had covered for Rav, but they didn't have covered for Rabbi Bar Chana, so it was not a good deal for Rabbi Bar Chana. So the Gemara says, why didn't he inform him and let him know that that's the reason, and that he wasn't going to do the mission for him? So the Gemara says, again, he was afraid that somebody else was going to buy the field. He didn't have time to delay. He had to buy it first for himself. And the last case that we have is not quite the same. There was no one who was sent to do anything, but you have Rav Gidol, who was examining a certain piece of land because he was thinking about purchasing it, and then Rabbi Abba went and he jumped in front of him and he bought it. So Rav Gidol went to complain to Rabbi Zera about the behavior of Rabbi Abba. Rabbi Zera went and complained to Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha. So he said, listen, wait till Rabbi Abba comes to me for Aliyah the Regel, meaning was to go to the Rebbe for Yontif, and I'll ask him radio and figure out what the story is. So when he came, he found him and he asked him, and he said, what's the halacha of a poor person who's examining a cookie to decide whether he wants to buy it or not? and somebody else comes and he grabs it away. So he said, he's called a Rasha. So he said, so why did you do it? So he said, I didn't know that anybody was examining it to buy it. I didn't know that there was any interest in it. So Rav Yitzchak said, okay, so maybe now let him buy it from you. So he said, look, it's the first piece of property that he ever bought. It's a bad siman to sell the first piece of property that you buy. So I don't want to sell it to him, but I'll be happy to give it to him as a gift. But Rav Gidl didn't want it as a gift because it says, he who hates gifts will live. So Rabbi Abba didn't want to use it because Rav Gidl had been examining it. Rav Gil didn't want to use it because he didn't want to receive it as a gift, so we ended up with no one using the land, and it was called the land of the Rabbanon. The Gemara now moves on to discuss the next case in our Mishnah, which is where we saw that someone was Kiddushin Isha with money that he gave her today, and he said that the Kiddushin is only going to be Chal after 30 days. So the halach over there that we had seen was discussing what happens if she's Makabel Kiddushin from someone else. In the meantime, the Gemara now wants to know a few shilas. Let's say she was not Makabel Kiddushin from someone else in the meantime. He gave her Kiddushin today. He said that this Ma'as Kiddushin is Chal in 30 days from now, and then the money was gone by the time 30 days were up. So what is the halacha over there? Is this Kiddushin still Chal with the money that he gave now, even though at the time that it's meant to take effect, it's not there to be Chal any longer? So the Gemara says that it is that Rav and Shmuel both say that it is Mukadeshes, and the reason is that this does not count as a milva, it doesn't count as a loan, it doesn't count as a bikadon, it doesn't count as money that was given to her to hold. It doesn't count as money that was given to her to hold because it wasn't given to her to guard for him. It doesn't still belong to the husband. He gave it to her. It's hers. She's supposed to be Mekudeshes with this. Now, it doesn't count as a loan, because a loan will also not be Kiddushin, because you can't be Makabel, you can't be Mekadeshin Isha with money that you lent her, and to be Meichlet her that she doesn't have to pay it back. That's not a valid Kiddushin, she has to receive something, because this wasn't given to her to be what's called Lahitzanit, now that it becomes hers to spend. It's hers for Kiddushin. It wasn't given as a loan to her, it was given B'taras Kiddushin for her to use, but it is her Kiddushin money that she has. And therefore, it's neither of those. Both Bikadain and Halva would not be good, but this is neither, and therefore it is good and it works. Now, the Gemara has a shayla, what happens if he or she decided to back out of the deal? Within the 30 days, they decided they want to change. Can they back out of the deal or not? And this time, some Machlek is Rish Lakish and Rav Yechon, and Rish Lakish says he cannot back out, and Rav Yechon says that they could back out. What's the reason? The entire Kiddushin was made as words, as speech. Rav Yechon says that speech can come and cancel speech. He made the Kiddushin with speech. He can back out with speech. Rish Lakish says speech cannot cancel speech. Now we'll have 3 proofs. The Gemara will reject them all, and then we'll have another version of this Machlekes of Yechanan and Rish Lakish, and in that case, one of the proofs will not be rejectable, and we will be able to determine the halacha in both of them. So let's first begin. We again have a Machlekes here whether you can cancel speech with more speech. So the Gemara's first proof is from a case where somebody made a shliach to separate truma for him, and then he went and he canceled, and he said, you know what, I'm canceling you, don't separate the truma for me. And the halacha is that if that person goes and it separates the truma, he's canceled, and it's no good. So you see clearly that speech did cancel speech, a raya to Rav Yechanan against Rish Lakish. So the answer is no, speech against speech works. That even Rish Lakish agrees to. Here we're talking about a slightly more than speech. It's speech assisted by an action. When he gave Kiddushin to the woman, so he actually physically did an action of giving her money, and then speech turned it into Kesef Kiddushin by saying Hariyad Mekudeshesli. So it's a bit stronger than speech against speech. It's speech with the assistance of action, and it's being cancelled by just speech. That's where the Machlekes is. So the more second kasha is where somebody sent a get to a woman with a shliach. There is actually a maisa. He did an action that's supported by speech. And there again, if he runs after the shliach and he cancels him, he's canceled. So that's exactly like the case that Rish Lakish is determining here. You have the original creation was speech assisting in action, and it's canceled by just speech. Again, a raya to Rav Yechanan. And there the Gemara answers again. The Gemara says, no, that action didn't count. Just writing, giving it to a shliach doesn't count as an action. The action is giving it to the isha. Giving it to shliach is nothing, and therefore it's just speech against speech. And again, it's not our case; it's not what we're discussing up here. The Gemara's third proof is the other way. It's Rish Lakish. It's a proof to Rish Lakish. Here we're discussing the determination of when a kli becomes susceptible to the laws of tumah. The halacha is that a kli can only become tumah once it's been completed. Now, if you're making a kli, you can stop the construction and many different steps along the way and say, okay, that's it, I'm finished. Not every kli has to be finished to the same level of perfection. So if you decide at some point in the fabrication of a kli that you're finished, then you've made it susceptible to tumah through thought, through your thinking that I'm not going to do anything any further. And that works to give it a state of being susceptible to tumah. Now, the same thing could be as if you do an action which seals the kli or wraps up the kli and shows that you're finished with it. Now, could you then change your mind and decide to cancel it, and it's not going to be susceptible to tumah any longer? So the halacha is, we see in a Mishnah that you need an action to undo it. You have to start sanding it or scraping it or doing something to continue the work towards fabricating the kli. That would return it to its state of being incomplete and therefore not susceptible to tumah any longer until it's finished. And this is true whether you made it complete by thinking I'm done or by doing something which demonstrates that you're done. Either way, you can only return it from that state. You can only go back to being incomplete by doing an action that demonstrates that it is not done. Now, so thought can't cancel thought. It's only actions that can cancel even thoughts. Actions can cancel actions, and actions can cancel thoughts. So you see that speech and thoughts are similar, and yet thought can't cancel thought. Similarly, speech should not be able to cancel speech. That is the raya to Rava. So the Gemara says, no, it's different that you're referring to machshava of tumah, thoughts as far as tumah. That has a higher level. The Torah considers that to be like action. You see, in the halachos of water falling on fruits to make them susceptible to be makabel tumah, that it's only that it is considered to be like an actual action. Where do you see that? So the Gemara quotes Rav Papa, when the halacha is that in order for fruits to be able to be makabel tumah after they're detached from the ground, it has to become wet with one of the 7 liquids, yad shachadam, and it has to be, it says ki yutan, and it's spelled ki yitain. Ki yitain would mean that you physically put the liquid on the fruit. Yutan means that it falls on it by itself. Papa says you learn from the fact that it's spelled one way and read the other way, that it has to be a mixture of the two. It could fall by itself, but with your approval, you have to agree to it. So you see that your approval, just you thinking that I want that, makes it into an actual action of yitain. And there you see that in Hilchas Tumah, thoughts count as actions, and therefore it's stronger than a regular thought against thought, and it's no right. Now, this is all the first version of this entire sugya. The Gemara's second version of the sugya is slightly different. Instead of the husband giving her Kiddushin, she makes a shliach lekabbalah. She makes a shliach to go accept Kiddushin for her from someone else. And this is Rav Zvid's version of this entire sugya. And there's a major difference here, because when she makes a shliach to go accept Kiddushin, then she goes and cancels the shliach and says, no, I don't want to accept Kiddushin for me. There's no maisa that is being supported when she originally created it. And in our first version, he gave the Kiddushin to her, and he said speech along with it, and Rava and Reish Lakish had said that speech supporting in action, that's what that's referring to. Here you don't have that. Here you just have straight up speech. She made a shliach to be makabel Kiddushin, and then she canceled the shliach to be makabel Kiddushin. So the Gemara is going to go through the same 3 rayas, and one of them is going to work. So the first raya is from the case of Truma, and you see from Truma that he can cancel speech with speech. Here, we're not going to be able to use the same answer as before, that Truma is weaker because it's only speech against speech. It's not speech supporting action against speech. Here we give a different answer. We say that here what was actually happening was that when he gave him the right, when he appointed him to take Truma, he actually took off one kernel of Truma. He didn't cancel him by saying you're canceled. He canceled him by taking Truma himself. So the cancellation was done with action. So even though Reish Lakish holds that speech can't cancel speech, here it's action canceling speech, and that's why it works. Now, the Gemara skips the question from sending the get. The Gemara goes instead to the discussion of machshava for Tumah. The Gemara gives the exact same question, the exact same answer. Speech against speech. You see that thoughts cancel thoughts, and the answer is no. Thoughts of Tumah are on a higher level. They count as actions because of Rav Papa's limud ki yitain ki yutan. The Gemara now brings in the right from the one who sends the get. This is a right to Rav Yechanan. You see if someone sends a get and then he cancels that can cancel. So you see that speech can cancel the sending of the get through speech. And here, Rish Lakish doesn't have an answer. Rish Lakish cannot answer that it's just speech against speech, because according to this version, Rish Lakish said is a halacha in the case of just speech against speech. And therefore, the Gemara paskins tiyufta de Rish Lakish tiyufta. It's a proof against Rish Lakish, and the halacha is like Rav Yechanan. And the Gemara says that the halacha is like Rav Yechanan, even in the first version of our discussion, where it was actually speech supporting action, where it was Kiddushin being cancelled by just speech, by just saying I'm canceling you. The halacha like Rav Yechanan also that the speech can cancel the speech supporting action. Now the Gemara asks that there seems to be a contradiction in halacha. Here we pass on like Rav Yechanan, speech cancels speech, but in Maseches Gittin we have a different discussion about somebody who cancels a shliach to bring a get to his wife, and there the question is, can he reuse the get? Rav Nachman says that he can, and Rosh Hashanah says he cannot. And the halacha is like Rav Nachman that he can, which seems to indicate that the get is not canceled. The speech does not cancel speech. So the answer is no. The speech wasn't canceling the get. The speech was canceling the shliach. And therefore, there is no problem. That is what Rav Nachman holds. There is no cancellation on the get. The get's fine. It was just a shlichus, and therefore is not related to this issue. Okay, the Gemara now refers back to the Mishnah. We had seen two cases in the Mishnah. One case was where a man is Mekadesh and Isha, and this is Chal after 30 days. Someone else is Mekadesh in between. And the halacha over there was that the second Kiddushin is Chal, and the first one is not Chal. And then the last case was where he says from today, and it takes effect after 30 days, but after 30 days it goes back to today, and it's effect from today. There, if someone's Mekadesh afterwards, within the 30 days, it is not Chal. The first one's Kiddushin gets in first because it works retroactively. So the Gemara has a comment of Rav and Shmuel, Machlekes Rav and Shmuel, and the Gemara is going to discuss, is that referring to the first case or referring to the second case? Now, the issue is what happens after 30 days. Rav says she's with it forever, and Shmuel says she goes back to the Kiddushin of the first person at the end of 30 days. The Gemara's first understanding is that we're talking about our first case, which is where she was Mekabel Kiddushin, the man was Mekadesh, and he said it takes effect not from now, it takes effect only after 30 days. Then she was Mekabel Kiddushin from somebody else, in which case Rav would be saying that she is Mekadesh to the Sheni forever. The Sheni's Kiddushin gets in before the first one, which we can understand. Shmuel, though, says that the first Kiddushin takes effect at the end of 30 days, and it knocks out the second Kiddushin, which took effect earlier. So the Gemara asks, how could that make any sense? That was the halacha which was brought by Rav Chisda. Rav Chisda said, I don't understand, how is the first Kiddushin take effect and knock out? What knocks out the Kiddushin of the second one, which took effect with no problems? So Rav Yosef said, your understanding on the first case, Rav Yehuda understood as referring to the second case, where he said me'achshav. And then the actual Machlekes Rav and Shmuel is, what state is she in after 30 days are up? According to Rav, she is in a state of suffix forever. According to Shmuel, she's in a state of suffix until 30 days are up. Now here, Shmuel, we can understand very well, because Shmuel is saying until 30 days are up, we don't know which Kiddushin will be Chal. If the first person remains alive and he's still around until the 30 days are over, his Kiddushin is Chal from day one, and therefore the second person's Kiddushin is never Chal. She's married fully to the first person and not the second person. However, we don't know if that's what's going to happen. So as long as the 30 days aren't up yet, he may still die and his Kiddushin is never Chal, and she ends up being married to the second person. So therefore, as long as the 30 days are still running, she's in a suffix who she's going to end up being married to. And once the 30 days are over, as long as the original Mekadesh is still alive, she's married to him. Now, Rav, though, says that we're not sure when he said that the original Kiddushin, when the first Mekadesh, when he said that your Mekadesh is to me from now after 30 days, was he changing his mind and saying from now, no, after 30 days, in which case he doesn't want it to be from now, only after 30 days, and the first one's Kiddushin Chal and not the second one? Or did he mean from now and it should take effect after 30 days? If I don't change my mind, then it takes effect from now. Meaning he made it tonight. If 30 days go by and I didn't change my mind, then from now it takes effect, in which case the first one's Kiddushin gets in first. So Rav says we have a suffix which one he meant, and therefore we're going to have to put her in a state of suffix, and she stays in that state of suffix for the rest of her life. Now this question of is he changing his mind or is he making it Tanai, the Gemara now says is the subject of Machlekes Tanaim. Those Tanaim are speaking about what happens if a man gives a woman a get, not Kiddushin, a get, and he says this get should be chal from now and after I die. So Rebbe holds, what he means to say is that it's chal from now, on the condition that I die, meaning when I die, this get takes effect from now, and that's a valid get from when he dies, and she is divorced retroactively. According to another Tana, it's a suffix, and the Gemara understands that he means to say we're mesupik if he means to say that it should be chal from now. No, it should be chal after I die, in which case it's no good because the get cannot take effect after a person had died. Or does he mean to say like Rebbe said that it's from now with the Tanai that I die, and therefore this Tana says it's a get, and again it's a suffix what the get is. So it seems clearly that Rav is saying like the Rabbanon, and Shmuel is saying like Rebbe. So why don't you just say that Allah is like Rabbanon, Allah is like Rebbe? So there's a Chiddush in the case of Rav and Shmuel over that of Rebbe and the Rabbanon. If Rav would just say that Allah is like the Rabbanon, I would assume that that's because it's talking about a get, where he wants to send her away. And over there, the Rabbanon hold that we're not sure what he means. It could be that he's changing his mind. Here, though, when he wants to be Makari of her, maybe the Rabbanon would agree that it is a valid Kiddushin. We assume that it is a Tanai. And therefore, Rav has to extend that halacha. Now, Shmuel couldn't just say that the halacha is like Rebbe, because in the case of Rebbe was referring to after Misa, it's obvious that people understand that you can't have a get take place after he died, and therefore it makes more sense to say there that he obviously meant from now. However, in our case, where it's nothing to do with after he died, he's just saying from now or after 30 days, and therefore it could take effect. There's no reason to assume that he didn't mean that. You may therefore understand that he means that, or have a tzad that he means that, and have a suffix. Shmuel has to tell you, no, there's no suffix, he definitely means from now.